Welcome to Women's Wars, a podcast series from Bern. I am Georgina Bame. For this series, I have interviewed 10 extraordinary women from countries that emerged from the former Yugoslavia. They are activists and journalists who were inspired by the wars of the 90s to take action to support the survivors and advocate for human rights. By telling their stories, these courageous women show how wars continue to have an impact on ordinary people decades after they were fought. In this episode, Veprore Shehu tells how, since 1999, she has been seeking support and justice for survivors of wartime sexual violence in Kosovo, fighting societal stigma and delays by officials. Veprore Shehu is all too aware of the pain that war causes. She lost her brother in 1999 Battle of Kosovo. The loss led her to want to take a more active role in Kosovo's fight for independence. Before the Kosovo War, Shehu was an English teacher, part of a parallel Albanian language education system forced underground by a decade of Serbian repression. After it began, she was working to register crimes in the database of the International Crisis Group NGO. It was here she learned about the atrocities of wartime rape.
I remember that every night we took and registered the crimes that were reported by those coming from the field. Mainly we covered the area of the Gajini region with International Crisis Group. At that time, I came into contact with the topic of sexual violence. I was obliged to add the data in the database, and there was a crime of this kind. And after being in contact with this topic, I came to the conclusion that I had worked on it.
For around 2 decades, Shehu has been the executive director of Metica Kosovo, an organization based in Jakova that works with women who were tortured in various ways or raped during the war. The organization has since worked with thousands of women, providing psychosocial counseling, legal support, gynecological assistance, and economic empowerment. The work has been rewarding, but also full of obstacles as survivors of sexual violence have faced social stigmas and institutional neglect.
Just 2 months later, I started working at Medica Kosovo in winter 1999. I came across a 17-year-old girl who got pregnant as a result of rape. And as per the report, she was subjected to physical abuse and rape. Her family in Jakova was very patriarchal, and it was difficult to hide her pregnancy and allow her to leave the home. This was the most stigmatized and humiliated time of the war, the time of acute trauma and emergency. At the time, I was a coordinator and would work on administrative stuff. But when she came to the center to receive counseling, and the 2 drivers were out on the field, I had to drive her to the hospital. The girl gave birth, and normally in these cases, we don't assume that a 17-year-old girl who was sexually abused would raise a child. We lied about her departure from the house, saying it was because she had problems with her kidneys. Because usually problems with the kidneys are the ones that cause bloating in the stomach. Normally, this is called conspiracy, but was to protect the child from the stigma and from the family taboo. And this was a very painful experience for those early days of my work. Over the years, we have helped a lot of women who have experienced complex trauma because of what they have experienced during the war. To reach out to sexual violence survivors, with ensuring their identity would be protected, we have used as a strategy the gynecological ambulance. We had gynecologists trained for psychosomatic treatment who came to the field and visited the women. We offered the women primary care, not secondary, because we did not have enough resources, and because the secondary services are public health institutions. Until 2011, when we had active mobile ambulance and a stationary ambulance in the center, we were able to help more than 9,000 women. However, not all of them were sexually abused. We supported 450 survivors of sexual abuse at that time.
It has been estimated that thousands of people were sexually abused during the Kosovo War. However, only 3 women and 1 man have openly talked about the violence they endured. The first verdict in a wartime rape case came only in 2022, but 5 women testified as early as 2002 in private at the trial of Yugoslavia President Slobodan Milosevic at the Hague Tribunal. Shehu helped at least one of the women.
I personally was in contact with a witness since she was my witness. She stayed there in The Hague for a week. She had a lawyer who helped her, and the cost of her testimony was the reallocation in a third European Union country. As a result, when she first came back after being the first witness in the Hague Tribunal, testifying on rape, 2 men from the same village tried to rape her. They understood that she went to testify about this case, and they could not accept why she told them, in this case the court, that she was raped, although she had claimed she went to testify about the murder of her father. But despite the fact that we tried to coordinate with the Hague Tribunal, in this case, to protect the identity of the witness, and all the sessions that did not cover the subject of sexual violence were open to the public. When this witness came to the Hague Tribunal and the session was not open to the public, this raised doubts. Why didn't she testify openly for the murder of her father, like the other witnesses who came to testify? But there were indications that such a thing, meaning the rape, happened. Fortunately, I don't regret that we participated in the Hague Tribunal, and the decision of the tribunal was to place her in a new country within the European Union.
Shehu also collaborated with the EU Rule of Law Mission, EULEX, facilitating the testimonies of 3 more witnesses. Currently, her organization is monitoring 10 other wartime rape cases with the Kosovo prosecution and assisting the victims.
Unfortunately, we are in a time when many witnesses are missing. Many witnesses are passing away. And I'm afraid that it will happen more often to testify in absentia because Serbia does not accept to extradite criminals to be tried here. We are still in contact with our special prosecutor and the judicial process for one woman who has, since her testimony, died, and which will begin next year. I don't know if they will tell us.
You mean after her death?
Yes, exactly. She didn't have a husband at the time. She had a son who was a witness of the rape as a kid, which means that he could remember. At first, he didn't want her to come to us and receive assistance, of course, because of the shame and stigma. But over the time, he understood that this was sexual abuse. He at first insisted that she didn't participate in the government commission or come here even though he knew that she was coming to receive treatment. The woman told us that one time the son threatened to leave the house. He had his own traumas. But by the end of her life, he would bring her by car and stayed outside until her sessions ended. I think that it is important to know that there are people who are trying to eliminate the trauma and to stop them. That is what we are trying to do through these cases. And we are trying to remind the families of these women that a rehabilitated woman is a reflection of a healthy family, and the child is consolidated in the emotional aspect.
Thank you for listening. You can find more installments of our Women's War series in our website, balkaninsight.com, or wherever you get your podcasts.